Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The silver light shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. I have been spending some time exploring why things are getting so damn expensive. Not just for me, but for you, any relatives you might have, your friends. You know it, I've said it before, the bacon and celery correlation. Remember, you used to be able to get a pack of bacon and a pack of celery for under $2, and it was not the chintzy little thing, it was a decent amount. And now the same stuff during harvest season is $5. Simply ridiculous. And like I've been saying, the farmers aren't suddenly going around driving BMWs. Well, some are, You give a group of people the same tools. Some are going to prosper, some are not. And I do not begrudge farmers at all. They got a tough job, whether it's working with finances, whether it's working with suppliers. But anyways, the question is, where is all that money going? Well, the first thing I'll tell you, transportation and logistics. This is a model that was introduced in the past 15 years, and in my opinion, has pretty much destroyed the industry, and it's destroying industry overall. I've mentioned at length about load brokers and third-party people and stuff like that, and factoring companies, and I'm not going to mention that at the moment. But there's this little concept that's used in freight. It's called JIT, just-in-time freight. It's also QR, quick response freight. I'll give you a good example that used to exist. Sears used QR freight. Now, this was actually pretty masterful for the time that they were around. Late 90s, early 2000s. They'd get your order in from the catalog. Remember the Sears catalogs? Yeah. Well, the internet was still not perfect, and Sears was still developing their website. So what they chose to do was take all those catalog orders, and they had, 24 or 48 hours to contact the manufacturer, because, Sears is a store. It doesn't manufacture things themselves, but they would tell them, we need 3 brown sofas, 2 silver ones, and a partridge in a pear tree, or whatever. I guess it's too early to make that joke. And the factory would say, yep, we'll have those ready by 2 o'clock tomorrow. They would put that down, they would build a run off of it, and some drivers would go on runs just picking up QR, because that was designed to be shipped out the next day, and it was about as close to Amazon as you were going to get before Amazon. Not perfect, they were still working the kinks out, but the difference is Sears was running it as a catalog business. Unfortunately, some people got the idea that all business should be run that way. Big 3 automakers, for example, GM, Chrysler, and Ford. They got the idea that this should be the way things are run. No. Let me explain why not. And I won't even get into supply chain management, which is Walmart's main distributor. Let's just stick with the big 3 for now. So the big 3 obviously produce cars and trucks. Oh, and by the way they produce cars and the way they produce trucks are run by different assembly lines, different procedures, different everything. They're both just in time, which means the product is scheduled to be there, say, tomorrow afternoon at 1, and another one will be delivered tomorrow afternoon at 3, and tomorrow afternoon at 6. So you need to start your drivers to be able to go pick it up, deliver the load to them, and then pick up empty racks and deliver it back to the original place. I've never understood for the life of me why they had empty trailers going back. I mean, you got racks on all of them, just keep shipping them back and you never run behind. But that's not my end of things. My end of things is just in time. Like I said, you've got certain deliveries per day. You know how much time you've got to get there. And the big 3 are literally pulling that stuff off the trailer and putting it on their assembly line. Coca-Cola is another place that does this. They have the empty cans coming in one place and the finished full cans of Coca-Cola or whatever product they have, because I can never get the right between Barks and Mug and all that sort of stuff, A&W. I can't keep track of who owns what. But that's what they all do. They're expecting their stuff to be delivered by a certain time, and if not, they hit you with however much it costs to run that line an hour. So potentially millions of dollars an hour for any mistakes. Now, transportation companies have gotten pretty good at this in the past, 15 years? I think I can go back 20 years with it. And they're very acutely attuned. In the 1990s, freight kind of arrived whenever it arrived. By 2002, a lot of things were having an appointment. And of course, we moaned and bewailed back then, but now almost everything has an appointment except for LTL. And even LTL gets appointments, less than truckload. So back to the JIT problem. The companies got pretty comfortable in their old system. They were able to guarantee the union they'd be getting a certain amount of cars to produce per day, per week, whatever the contract negotiation is. So, in a perfect world, your truck full of parts comes in, gets rolled onto the line, pick up and empty, and take off. Meanwhile, the workers are working on that line, building cars, trucks, etc. A long time ago, I think on my radio show, I mentioned this as a big problem. And the reason is, the first problem is a lot of those cars wind up sitting and not going anywhere because they have a quota to reach and there's bonuses for reaching that quota. The shift supervisors will do what they can to motivate the employees, which is good. That's a good metric. But it means the person in charge of, quote, ordering, end quote, is no longer trying to feed a line for demand. They're feeding a line for the sake of feeding a line. So if you're making Ford Focuses and you make 100,000 units, and you're only selling 80,000 units, yeah, there's problem number one right there. The other problem with the JIT model, just in time, is it has zero flexibility built into it. Some companies I've worked with, mostly food ones, keep raw ingredients on standby so they can keep their lines running for a little bit. This mostly works with like ice cream plants and stuff like that. But whereas the big three decided that they were going to have everything go onto the line, come out of the line, and no thoughts about it. Then the pandemic happened. Because nobody was ordering and keeping stock anymore, all of a sudden things got stupidly expensive. Remember lumber? Nobody could find a 2x4 in the bloody country? Well, that's because they were going with just in time. They cranked up the plants, but because for so many years the plants have been going at a fairly predictable rate, they couldn't saw enough lumber, enough 2x4s and 4x4s and stuff like that to keep up with demand. And this is where JIT fails. Trucks have all sorts of crazy things happen. If I start telling stories, I'm going to be here the rest of the day. But yeah, they break down, they get a flat tire, and those are situations where you can't be moving. If a police officer sees that, they're gonna be all over you. One place I worked with a rider who has the big three contract, I don't think I'm spilling any industry secrets there, they had a bribe fund, literally a fund to bribe drivers. And the reason is sometimes stuff changes, and drivers like knowing a schedule. They like knowing they're going to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to do their run and whatever it is, and they're going to go home at 5 o'clock, whatever it might be. They like being in that schedule. So When stuff comes up and you need to switch drivers because one guy knows the route, the other guy doesn't, this company would offer them bribes, maybe an extra $50, $100, etc., just to keep them happy. Just because of this JIT system, because they're so paranoid about shutting down one line, we're bribing drivers to do a job. And you know what? They're paid hourly. They'd make more money doing the second run because that's usually the way it works. You cover the longest run first, then you come back and cover the shorter one because you can do that on somebody's second trip. There's all sorts of ways to cover a second short run. But like I said, the main problem is this shut a lot of things down. And when all the ships wound up stuck at sea because the stevedores weren't allowed to offload them or couldn't offload them, I forget exactly what the problem was. Stevedores is the name of the person that operates those big cranes. And yeah, you can see why this whole model came to a shattering halt. Toilet paper, well, there was no stockpile of it, if you recall. Things like baby wipes and hand sanitizers and stuff like that. They were trying to keep to this just-in-time model when you know what hit the fan. People delude themselves into there being a cost savings on just-in-time freight. There is, but you don't look at the long term. In World War II, the Germans ran into the problem where they had to do just-in-time freight because everything was being destroyed. And the only way they were keeping their fighter lines up in production was for the rail cars to arrive at a specific time. Then the workers is such a loose term in this. The people who would be in charge of assembling stuff would be there at that time. And we know that system doesn't work from history. It's not adaptable. And companies would rather try to micromanage everything. Do you know what Ryder does when you have a car or a truck that's on the road? They're calling you constantly. Why is this one 2 minutes behind schedule? Driver stopped for a coffee. Maybe it was a bio break where biological functions needed to be taken care of. You're supposed to keep them updated in the computer system, but people are human. You might forget one. And the people you hire at Ryder are just straight bullies. Never met a pleasant one in my life. Even trying to build relationships with them like you would usually do with a customer. Nope. They're dedicated to just-in-time freight, and they don't care what happens. You're going to get it rolling. I worked with a major courier company, and they had failure built in. They sent a load of stuff that was not rush at all, just so in case stuff broke down or something, you could have this non-rush driver hook onto the rush load and still make it in time. That's how courier companies work. But that isn't how the big three work. Because you know what? They're the big three, and what they say goes. We have to start really thinking about new ways to do business in this country. Because if we can screw up production after just a couple weeks of things not being perfect, that has really bad implications for the economy in general. Right now, we're with China going through their real estate bubble, which I haven't really addressed on this show because I don't think I know enough about it to comment. But the important thing is their demand is going to go down for raw products, which means a lot of other countries' GDPs are going to go down because China's not ordering this stuff. They may have a bailout like we had in 2008, or they may try to ride it out. No good solution either way. But see, once again, we're going to walk into a process where just-in-time freight is not going to be available because them depending on these companies where they might not be able to deliver product efficiently for various reasons. If your transportation company goes bankrupt, it takes a few days to scramble and find somebody reliable to carry it. I know this. I had a good relationship with a certain transportation company in Windsor, is what I'm going to say. And I found out a couple times that I gave them a load on the weekend at quite a good rate, and they would just not run it. They'd leave it sitting there. I'd come in on Monday and, why is this load not moved? And you know what? The reason was that their driver had called in sick or hadn't shown up, whatever, and they had never contacted me, despite the fact I had extra drivers ready to go. I never leave myself in a bad situation. So I terminated that relationship because while this stuff was technically not just in time, the customer still wanted it picked up, and justifiably so. They had told us days in advance on Saturday, Sunday, whatever it is, we're going to have a load, needs to be picked up and delivered for whatever the heck it was. And their rates were pretty darn good. So it's all part of knowing what companies can do. And I know you can't really get used to a company and what it's going to do and what your backups are until you take that chance. But with this whole just-in-time mentality, you don't have time to make those chances. I had 2 chances blow up on me. I never gave them a third. Couldn't afford to. Customers keep report cards. And I've always been very good at report cards. So, this JIT stuff, now that things are pretty much back to normal, it's time we clamp down on that and make sure that companies know what is actually going on. Because trying to schedule things like a clock in 2023, you must be kidding. With that, we hope that you enjoyed today's show. If you did, please like, share, subscribe if you haven't. Don't forget to click the bell down in the comments. That way you can stay notified of every new episode that we upload. And we hope you have a fantastic day.